What's up, y'all, and welcome back to In the Wild. We have a very special episode for you today because we are talking a little bit of all things Hispanic Heritage Month, and we have two very special people to get us started with that. So, getting started, our first guest is an assistant professor for the Department of English and World Languages, and he's one of my favorite professors. So, give a warm, general welcome to Dr. Christopher Botero.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me today.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah.
And you brought a friend with us, so give another warm Jagger welcome to Maria Branyan.
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
Yes, we're so excited to have both of y'all here. But getting us started, Dr. Botero, could you share a little bit about your role here at AU and the role, I guess, of the English and World Languages Department?
Sure. Well, I'm currently the Director of World Languages in EWL. And in English and World Languages, we have English, obviously, but the world languages that we have are Arabic, French, German, Mandarin Chinese, and Spanish. We generally are sometimes viewed as a department who will actively see a lot of freshmen. Sometimes we'll have freshmen for 3 different classes. And speaking about myself, I've been with this department for about 13 years now, and we are continuing to see, growth and change, which is really exciting.
For those who are interested in studying a world language as a major or minor, what does that process look like for them, and what does the program look like?
Great question. When compared to other say majors such as biology or maybe in the Hall College of Business where track sheets can be somewhat regimented. Students are given a very detailed plan of what they can take, things of that nature. With the major in Spanish, or rather the degree in world languages, we have a concentration in Spanish. We also have one in French, a concentration for Spanish and French education. Typically, the major is 36 credits. You need a couple of core courses at the 3,000 level, but beyond that, students are able to kind of pick very specific courses tailored to their specific interests. We have some students who are on the pre-med track. We have students on the pre-law track. We have students in business, in the arts. And with the variability, or rather the flexibility you can have in these tracks, students are able to take courses that are tailored to other interests that they have.
How does, I guess, the department connect with those, I guess, in the community? Because I feel like with world languages, you kind of have a broad reach.
Right. And I want to say in recent years, we did add Arabic and Mandarin Chinese, so our connection with the community has really kind of expanded. But our department has ties with ACHA, which is the Association for Latin American Culture of the CSRA. We also have ALAS, A-L-A-S, which is and the acronym is in Spanish, Asociación Latina de Servicios del CSRA, or the Latin American Association of Services of the CSRA. La Clínica Latina, the Latin Clinic, which is a part of MCG, but I think it is about 2 weeks out of the month. The clinic operates to see clientele that can only speak Spanish, or rather that only speak Spanish, as outreach. We have ties with the Georgia Cancer Center. I also coordinate internships in my department. And last semester, one of my interns translated a manual on breastfeeding into Spanish, which is really very impactful because we have all of these resources for new mothers. The CSRA is growing and it is diverse. It's necessary for minority groups to also have access to that type of crucial information. The Cancer Center, Goodwill, Helms College, we actively have students go there to teach Spanish-speaking students who are getting their GEDs. So we do have kind of a vast connection to the CSRA, which is really very exciting.
Yeah, it sounds like y'all stay pretty busy.
Yes, sir. We try to.
But it also gets me thinking about my experience as being a Spanish minor. Do you remember me as a student?
Yes, I do. Very well, very well.
You answered that a little too quickly. What do you remember most about me as a student?
I remembered the energy that you brought to the class, and even as a student, you were very outgoing and had, a presence. I think that presence, though, is very important because in order to kind of learn a language, you have to be comfortable, right? If you are very anxious, you may kind of shut down, you don't want to interact. You brought a very kind of relaxed, jovial vibe to the room, which I really did appreciate, So if you want to get your master's degree.
I'm triggered, trying to get a master's right now. But switching gears a little bit,
Yes,
Maria, what has your experience been like with the World Languages Department so far?
Well, this is just my second year here, and the experience that I have had is very positive. I have wonderful professors. I have experienced the knowledge that they can pass through the students, and it's been very. It have made an impact in my life. I come from a different generation, a different way to study, but the department has made a good effort and have done really good to try to incorporate different subjects into the major, and I think that it will only benefit the students that are participating in the Spanish program.
What made you want to study Spanish?
Well, as my accent says, or you can hear, that's my mother language, my native language, and I learned English studying on my own, and then I immigrated here to the States. But I wanted to study Spanish because I saw the need in Augusta for interpreters. I have helped immigrants translating to them in the immigration court or right now at the jail. And sometimes they need some sort of certification. And actually today, just now when Professor was mentioning about ALAS, today for the very first time, I'm going to interpret at the ALAS to take the place of someone who couldn't make it. So that need to have people here helping others to communicate because they just do not have the knowledge of the language, I think is something that impacted me, and I really wanted to help.
Oh, that's amazing that you're going to be able to be or continue to be an interpreter. Could you talk about any experiences that you've had on campus that just kind of gave you a strong sense of like inclusion and belonging?
I would say with my first class with the professor. What was the name of the first professor? The
Botero?
lady? No, the lady.
Biasetti.
The other one.
Dr. Carver.
Yeah, Dr. Carver. She was awesome. And we had a really good group of students there. We had Mexican students, students from Guatemala, students from Puerto Rico. And so it was kind of being in that pod where you listen your language in different accents, and you learn a little bit of their culture. And I felt at home. I'm from Panama, and Panama is like a melting pot where you have people from everywhere. And I was so happy when I walked into that class and I heard my language and I heard everybody talking and speaking Spanish and saying things, different slangs, and I felt very relieved and happy that day. So that's been a very positive experience for me in the other classes as well with Dr. Otero Luque. I think he's a wonderful professor, very knowledgeable, And I haven't had Dr. Botero yet. He's my counselor, so I have to talk good about him. But hopefully in the next semester. But I can only say positive things about the program.
And incidentally, the class that she just mentioned is a new class that we recently incorporated. It's Spanish for Heritage or Native Speakers. And this is for those students who and there was wide variety among the students, but it's a course designated for those Hispanic individuals that speak Spanish already, but they don't have a lot of formal training. So this way, this kind of catches them up from all of the beginning conversation grammar classes. But it really is quite popular. The first time it was offered, it was, there were a good amount of students. So we're quite excited about it.
That's awesome. Switching gears a little bit, let's just start discussing the significance, I guess, of Hispanic Heritage Month. Could you explain a little bit of why it's important to raise awareness and to celebrate during this month?
Sure. Speaking historically, many people don't know that before English, Spanish arrived to, the then United States first in the early 1500s off of the coast of Florida. Speaking more about the present, though, Spanish speakers make up the largest minority group in the country. And as you and I think a lot of us know that the United States doesn't have an official language. So when we talk about the importance or relevance of Hispanic Heritage Month, it gives us a time to celebrate, and it's generally during the time that many Central American nations gained independence, right? On the 15th, we then have Mexico on the 16th, and then Chile on the 18th. But it's, I think, a time that helps us realize the importance of all things Hispanic that are in the United States. There is a wide variety of what is Hispanic, and it gives us this time to properly recognize the food, the tradition, the culture that is really embedded in a lot of communities in the United States.
And speaking of culture, how does studying the Spanish language contribute to a better understanding of the Hispanic culture?
That's a very excellent question. So I want to say at beginning, elementary, or intermediate levels, elements of culture are kind of peppered throughout lessons. So say, for example, in the month of October, we might talk about Dia de los Muertos, or Day of the Dead. It takes place around the same time as Halloween, but the aspects of it are quite different, right? So Dia de los Muertos is more to recognize the importance of those family members who were very, very close to you, the importance of their lives, and to celebrate it and pay respect and celebrate their lives. So we have those kind of contrastive cultural elements, but in a more advanced class, say like literature, if we are reading something from the 1950s in Spain, that is going to be very culturally informed about the political events that were going on at the time, the specific language of Spain, right? The accent and the lexical items, the vocabulary of the Spanish used in Spain is very, very different from that is spoken in Panama or Mexico or Puerto Rico. So for the advanced classes, I want to say that you cannot separate that notion of culture from the texts. So it's a real powerful, almost immersing thing. If we have students who are going to move on into international business, right? Business or, say, medicine, studying things like this helps, say, a business student realize where their client or business partner may be coming from, things that may be perhaps taboo to address directly, right? If we're talking about students who are in pre-med, you're learning about some of your future patients. You'll get a very deep insight into why they might act or say in a certain way and why they might not be quick to disclose other information. So things that are really quite relevant.
How did that feel for you as a professor, but also as the director of this program, to see so many students kind of venture off into so many different branches?
I want to say it's just really cool, but that sounds like a very non-academic response. I often have students say, why should I study Spanish? I speak Spanish already, why should I study it? Business will make me more money, or law, medicine. And that is perhaps very true. But if you study a language, many times the better question is, what can't I do with this? We've had Spanish majors, and again, this is a little bit reiterative, go into medicine, go into law, go into publishing, go into being the main podcaster for the university, and one of, I want to say, really the public faces of the university. Advertising, art, what can't you do? I do know of, say, students who never really ventured into a different language during their undergraduate degree, and sometimes they're waiting for that perfect job with a major or a minor, or you don't even have to have either of those things. If you take a few classes, normally those students have their pick of jobs come graduation. So it's very exciting for them, but also for me, because it gives me a little bit of bragging rights.
And back to you, Maria. Have you had a chance to participate in any Hispanic events on campus, or being involved with anything like that so far?
Yes, last year the department brought a wonderful guitarist, musician from Spain, Francesco Soler, and the guitar is one of my favorite instruments, and so he came here, and he had we met with him, and then he also had a kind of a concierto, a concert, and it was I participated there, and there's something about the sound of the guitar that is, I don't know, I think so, for every Hispanic, it's just that sound that brings you back so many memories from all the history that we have. And listening to him and seeing a room full of people, not only Hispanics, but the head of the department and other students from different other schools, it was something very nice to have, and that I think that participated in that event, and then also with Professor Otero Luque in his class of culture. He had the students bringing a dish from their country, so we had food from Puerto Rico, from Guatemala, Mexico. I just went there to eat, but it was good.
Going back to, you mentioned the guitar, what sort of memories did it bring back for you when you hear the guitar being played?
When I was in high school, I belonged to a group from, we would perform. I used to play the guitar, and we will go to events, and we will play, like for the Rotary Club, the Lions Club. And so I'm talking when I was about, 16, 17 years old. And so also in Panama, the Mother's Day is different than most of the countries, the Hispanic countries, and it's on December the 8th. Part of our tradition is to serenade the mothers. So on the night of December the 7th, we would go as a group and play serenades to the mothers.
Aww.
And we would just show up there and start singing from the stairs or down in the streets. So listening to that to me meant it was very significant.
Well, that's awesome. Thanks for sharing that. Are you a musical person?
But to, emphasize what Maria just said, my father played the guitar as well. So whenever someone plays the guitar, especially acoustically, it is something that it instantly sparks just memories of my childhood and being younger,
I appreciate both of y'all sharing that with us. So before we wrap up, Maria, if you could give one message to fellow students or future students studying Spanish, what would you tell them about the Spanish program?
I would say to students that Augusta University offers a program that is very integrated, that you will be able to grow in the knowledge of your language. You will think just because you speak a language, you know everything about the language, but that's not it. The grammar, things that you will forget. In the classes offered by the department are somehow connected. What you hear in culture with one professor, it will be more in depth with another professor, and what you will build here will be just a wonderful knowledge, not only of the language, but of the different cultures. And also you will advance in other aspects because all the other courses that are offered. So I will invite those students that are not thinking about Spanish. The population here, not only here in Augusta, but in the United States, is growing. And the need for people who can speak Spanish is just going to be more and more. And you never know what you learn today, how in the future you will be able to help others. And in your heart you have that you would like to help in whatever is the career that you will select. Spanish will be something that will help you to advance.
Final thoughts or any plugs for any upcoming events?
We do have world language students now have a space to study and practice. It's going to be known as the World Language Hub or the Hub. We have our grand opening on September 11th from 11 to 2 p.m. Please stop by. There is something else I am forgetting to mention. Study away. Our department during next spring break, we are going to Miami.
Oh, nice.
So one of the things we know about Spanish is, like Maria had just said, you don't have to leave the United States really to be immersed in it, especially if you go to South Florida. So you can earn a few credits by going to see Miami and studying with us. So if this sounds interesting to any student, current or prospective, please join us.
I want to go to Miami. But thank y'all so much for being here, and I'm looking forward to seeing all the things we do to celebrate Hispanic Heritage Month.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having us.
Welcome back, y'all, and we are continuing our conversation about Hispanic Heritage Month, and I am super excited because we have a very special guest coming from the Boca, Florida area. She is an assistant professor in the Department of English and World Languages, and she's also one of my favorite professors, so give a warm Jaguar welcome to Dr. Giada Biasetti. How's it going?
Hi, how's everybody doing there?
Great, thanks for being here. And also in the studio, to my left, we have a double major. He is Spanish and business student. So give a warm Jaguar welcome to Jacob Wilson. How's it going?
Pretty good. Happy to be here.
Yeah, thanks for being here. So getting us started, Dr. Biasetti, what is it like, or how has it been for you being able to work hybrid?
So it's been great so far. It's going very well. I enjoy it a lot. I do miss being in the classroom a little bit, but I'm actually comfortable now with technology, and I teach both synchronous and asynchronous. So the synchronous class also allows me to interact with students more. So I'm getting more used to it, and I like being here in Florida, and the proximity to Miami makes me feel like there's a lot of Latin American culture there. A lot of Latin Americans live there, so I feel like I am in Latin America sometimes. So I feel closer to Spanish and where I used to live when I was little. So I do love it here. My family is all here in Florida. I do get to come back to campus once in a while for special events or graduation and everything. So I get to see all my colleagues, my students in person. I'm going to be back also for the study abroad fair. Where I'll be promoting 2 programs. So it's all good so far. But I
Well,
teach everything online.
well, we do miss you here on campus.
Yeah.
Um, but diving into our conversation for today, first up, how do you maintain and celebrate your Hispanic heritage?
Well, I do. Well, now that I'm in Florida, actually, it comes easier because I am surrounded by a lot of people that I know here, are also from Venezuela, from Cuba, from Peru. So I know a lot of people here. I've met them through, I go to Zumba, which is, at the gym, and it's all Latin American music based, so I met a lot of people there at the gym that are from all, places in Latin America, also some people from Spain. And so going to Miami also on the weekends, I can also eat the food, typical food from Latin America. So I eat Venezuelan food, Peruvian food. There's a lot of restaurants here in Boca as well. This is where I live, but then I go back and forth to Miami very often. So I usually do it through food, through if there's any festival going on in Miami, which there are a lot, any music festivals. I love music, dancing, and the food, so I try to maintain, and go to as much as possible. So I can speak Spanish, and I keep it alive.
What about you, Jacob? You aren't Hispanic, but you have some experiences with the Hispanic culture. So, how do you celebrate during this month?
So for me during this month, it's a little bit more difficult in Augusta just because of kind of a lack of Hispanic culture here to an extent. It's a lot harder for me to be able to speak Spanish and just kind of appreciate the nuances in the culture that I got to appreciate living in Peru, but just kind of a little bit lack of community here, so it's been a little bit tougher to celebrate.
So, tell us a little bit about your experience in Peru, because you said you lived there for a number of years.
Right, so my family and I moved abroad when I was 8 years old, so this was in 2010, and we lived in Cusco, Peru. My dad was volunteering as a director of a medical clinic to outreach to the poorer community there. And so I lived there until about 2018, and so we would come back to the States to visit every so often, but the majority of my formative years, because when I was 8 to about 16. So a lot of my memorable childhood was spent in Peru. So I got a lot of really neat experiences from that.
What's one of your most memorable experiences when you think of your time in Peru?
This is going to sound a little bit cliche, but going to Machu Picchu, that was just a great experience. I hiked it. I had the flu that day, so
Oh, wow.
It was very memorable because it was a rough hike, but really fun day. Just a beautiful view there.
And I'm sure it was extra rough having the flu.
Oh, definitely.
Okay. Well, I don't know if you guys know, but I was born in Peru, so
Oh, really?
I lived 9 years in Peru. So yeah, I have a lot of childhood memories too. I'm very fond of Peru, but from Lima though. I lived in Lima.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was the transition like coming from Peru to here?
It was interesting. It was hard to learn how to be an American after so much time abroad. And we had a couple American friends over there, but it was kind of just culture shock, reverse culture shock coming back and just kind of learning what people like, what the trends are, kind of how to fit into this culture a little bit. So
So how did you end up at Augusta University?
So my family was originally from here, and we moved back here, and so this was kind of the logical next step for me because I didn't really want to go off to another city to be in college. So this is kind of a logical next step for me.
I got you. And what about you, Dr. Biasetti? How did you come to Augusta University?
Oh, that's a long answer. But I actually, because I've been kind of everywhere, but I started out. I lived in Peru, I lived in Italy, I lived in Venezuela, and then I came to the States. Well, after Italy, I graduated. I did my college there, and then I came to the States. I did my master's and PhD here, and then I started out in Iowa, and then I changed jobs and came to Georgia. That's a very condensed version of it, but. I came for Augusta University as as a tenure track professor. Got tenure here, and so been here for now 11 years. Yeah.
Do you remember me as a student?
Oh yes, I do. Of course I do.
I asked
I do.
I asked Dr. Botero this earlier, but what do you remember about me as a student?
I remember you were very good, and you were very how do you say, involved, and then like always with a very positive attitude, and always wanting to know more about the culture and everything. So that actually reflects onto what you're doing now. But I remember you a little bit also shy, like more reserved as well, and then you kind of opened up more later. So that's how I remember you. But you were a great student. We remember all students.
I appreciate you saying that. But shifting gears a little bit, could you talk a little bit about the influence of Hispanic foods and how they kind of influence American culture, I guess, a little bit?
Yes, well, I mean, there's a lot more restaurants now. I'm not sure. Well, in Georgia, I guess not as many, but if you go to Atlanta, of course, you're going to find a lot of Peruvian. So Mexican obviously is the number one. You can find them everywhere. And then you can find once in a while some Venezuelan, some Colombian. Peruvian cuisine is actually one of my favorites after Italian cuisine, and then Peruvian. And I'm glad that it's actually growing more because at first, you couldn't find as many restaurants. I don't believe there's any Peruvian restaurant in Augusta that I know of, but I know there's some in Atlanta. And here in Florida, it's everywhere. I think in Boca, there's like 5 or 6 of them already, if not more. So it's slowly expanding, and people are getting more knowledgeable when it comes to also distinguishing that Latin American food is different, that every country is different. They get to taste a very limited, though, menu of that region. So they always kind of rotate always the same kind of dishes. But there are now a lot more restaurants where they're doing more unique and actually more traditional dishes that you wouldn't see here, that are not always the common ones. So, for example, with Mexican food, you always have the tacos and the tamales, and you know all of those already. There's some places that are starting to put, for example, they eat the crickets, fried crickets, for example. So you can find actually restaurants that are starting to do that, starting to be more adventurous and really add on to the menu, really bringing in everything that is typical of that region. There's so much, but I'm glad that it's slowly growing, but there's still a lot to learn from that cuisine. And also specifically that not all Spanish food is the same. Like categorizing it as Spanish food is not really correct, because it is not just Spain, it's not just Mexico, but it's every single Latin American country as well. So very different in style and cuisine and traditions.
What are some
And
what are some of your favorite Peruvian foods and dishes?
well, Peruvian foods are ceviche is one of my favorites, and then I have, yeah, the ceviche is, and it's funny because Peruvians will, and I actually agree with Peruvians that they're the ones who invented ceviche. Like it originates from Peru, because if you ask somebody from Chile or from Ecuador, they're going to say, no, it's our ceviche, ceviche is ours, but it's actually, in Peru, they actually have a holiday. It's the National Day of Ceviche, and so it's considered a cultural heritage. So that's one of my favorites. They're mostly known for that, and then papas a la huancaína is another dish that I love. And it's just boiled potatoes, very simple, with a creamy sauce and ají amarillo, which is very typical from that area, the Andes. It's not like the peppers from Mexico. It's different, and it's yellow in color, so the sauce is a little yellowish. And sometimes you put a little bit of milk to make it creamier, and it's just that. And you eat those potatoes or yuca also with it. And it's very, very simple, but very good. And then another one is ají de gallina, which has more or less the same kind of sauce as well, always made with the ají, with that pepper from that region. Those are some of my favorites. But I love everything. All of it. I don't think there's anything in the Peruvian cuisine that I don't like. Except for maybe they do eat guinea pigs, so that one I don't eat. Yeah, that's the only thing I'm not fond of.
You have to try it once, though.
Yeah.
Oh, so you've tried it?
You have to try it once while you're there.
I have tried it, but it's yes, definitely not one of my favorites. It's still good, but I wouldn't order that. Let's put it that way.
Fair
I just
enough.
feel bad for the guinea pig. That's just me.
Oh, what are some of your favorites?
So first of all, I love ceviche as well, and I agree with you, and I'll die on that hill that Peru originated ceviche, and they have the best ceviche I've tried. So
Yeah.
that's a great one. I had a little bit more of like the mountain cuisine as opposed to the coastal, because there are some differences just based on where they are. But there are like 300 kinds of potatoes, and I'm pretty sure I tried at least half of them once, because potatoes are very common. But
Yeah.
my favorite kind of restaurants that we would go to are these little holes in the wall called menus. And so you're paying like 8 soles, so maybe like $3 to eat there. And there's the soup of the day, and then you get your choice of one of 2 entrees. And so a lot of times we would go to those for lunch, like the whole family, we would just be able to go out to eat. And it was like super cheap, but every single thing there is just fantastic. The only food that I don't like, I wasn't a huge fan of guinea pig, but I had to try it once. But they have this like freeze-dried potato called chuño that's kind of tough to eat. But other than that, Peruvian food is just fantastic. I'm going to have to check out those restaurants in Atlanta.
Yeah, I'm trying to Google and do a whole like little search when I get done recording here. But so food often serves like as a bridge between cultures. Do you think that's true for like Hispanic culture as well, like the different foods?
Oh yeah, I mean, if you analyze all of their dishes down to the origins of the ingredients or anything, there are so many connections coming from the indigenous, like the Incas, like for example, chicha morada in Peru. The chicha was also used in the Inca Empire as a ritual and ceremony. So everything comes from not only the indigenous civilizations that were there, but also from Spain. And then from Spain, you have some Arabic also influence as well, because they were, for centuries under the rule of the Moros, so you have a lot of Muslim also cultural traditions and cuisine that comes across in the Latin American cuisine. So there's a lot of connections from coming from Europe and other cultures. And Peru has a lot of Japanese also influence, arroz chaufa, things like that. It's like fried rice. So everything is connected. So when I go out to eat, I like to know the history of that dish, because I like to know where everything came from and how everything, and that's what makes it so unique and interesting, the food, because it has so many different cultural backgrounds and cuisines from all over the world. And so something original is born from there, and then every region kind of has its version of it, and all of them are good, but some are maybe better than others, or you prefer one to the other, like the ceviche, for example. I prefer Peruvian ceviche. But, yeah.
Shifting gears a little bit, Dr. Biasetti, you are known for the Salamanca study abroad trip. Could you tell us a little bit about that for those who may be interested in studying abroad?
Oh yes, well it's a fantastic program. It's 5 weeks, so it is long, and in those 5 weeks, it's packed with things that we do. Usually, we start out in Madrid, and we spend a few days in Madrid, and we see a lot of the things that Madrid has to offer. We go to the Museo del Prado, so you see a lot of the art, and just like you go out to eat at the restaurants there, so you're already immersed in the culture and language. And then from Madrid, we go to Salamanca. And Salamanca is where the Universidad de Salamanca is, and that's where the students take classes there. So they take actually classes with professors from the Universidad de Salamanca. The program is an international program. It's called Cursos Internacionales. And so there's a lot of students from different universities as well, not only from the United States, but they come from Italy too and other parts of Spain. So it's very international, and all the classes are all in Spanish with professors, and then some of them some of the classes are with me, so the students take some classes with me. But most of the contact hours are coming from when we go to museums, we go to trips like Pamplona, for example. We go see other cities as well. We go to Toledo. We go to, then at the end, we go to Barcelona. We stay there for a few days. We go see the museum, the Dali Museum. So a whole bunch of things that you see in different regions of Spain. And all of that counts as part of the experience, the contact hours, and they have to do projects and things that are based on everything that they see, and there's so much. I would have to talk hours to describe every single thing that we do while we're there. But students come back with their oral proficiency is a million times stronger. They feel more comfortable with speaking Spanish, but also understanding. Their vocabulary has expanded quite a bit, and they really feel sometimes they want to come back. They don't want to leave. We have to like drag them away. You have to go back, and then they come back and do a master's or do the program again. So it is a wonderful opportunity for students, and not just to learn Spanish and make your Spanish stronger, but just as a life experience and just growing as a person. It is absolutely amazing and totally worth the price, the time, everything.
I would say that's probably my only regret about my college experience is not going on that trip.
Yeah.
Because I've heard so many great things, and being a Spanish minor, I knew folks that went on it and they had an amazing time. So I always
Yeah.
wish I could have gone on to
You
those.
can
Well,
come.
look, that's all I needed was an invite. So I will be looking into it.
Yes.
I know that it's like because it's 5 weeks, there's so many different things to experience. But what would you say are some of your favorite parts of that trip and that experience?
Oh wow, some of my favorite parts. That's a tough. Well, I absolutely love Toledo, the city of like the three cultures. It's a beautiful city, and we just get to walk around and see just how beautiful it is, and how many different cultures were lived there at one time in peace. And then there's like the people are just very very nice. It's not. It is touristy, obviously, but it's not like overwhelmingly touristy, so it has kept that some of its charm. I mean, all of its charm, basically, and then you get to just experience what it would mean to live there as well, and you take it on. It's beautiful city, and then other things that we see. I mean, I love Madrid also. I love it as a city. Everything that city offers, very international city. So there's a lot to do. So there's a lot of nightlife also. So students enjoy that part as well. And then Salamanca is just such a wonder. It's like a little jewel. It's a wonderful, peaceful, calm, very safe city. You can walk everywhere. It just you wake up in the morning and and everything is it's fresh. It's actually a little chilly and then it gets really hot after. But it's the most pleasant time is to walk around the streets of Salamanca in the early morning when the vendors are also getting the stuff ready, and the trucks are delivering the food and stuff, but there's no one really around. That's the best part. And then when it gets all full of people, students, tourists, it becomes lively. I also love the what they do in Spain, where the time of the lunch and the dinner is very late. But they stay up, for example, the earliest you can have dinner is 9, right? That's the earliest, sometimes 10 o'clock. So they all come out in the plaza at first, and you see all the families, the kids playing around, and it's just beautiful environment. And then each and everybody goes to their, dinner places, and then they come back to the plaza and have ice cream. So it's just everything around you, just the environment of just being there. I love every single minute of it. I can't really pick one particular thing, but just everything that you experience from each different city as well. Barcelona as well, very beautiful, unique city as well.
Well, I'm ready to go on this trip. Jacob, has there been a favorite country that you traveled with your family?
Uh, I'm trying to think. Spain actually was fun. I went there with my family a couple years ago on one of our like summer vacations. But I fell in love with Barcelona while we were there, going to the Sagrada Familia, and then walking
Yeah.
down like this main road, seeing the ocean and everything. It was a very pretty city. I wish I could have spent more time there. Might have to come on this trip,
Yes,
sneak
Look,
off to
sure.
Look, we can
Barcelona.
go. We can go together. We can go together.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Well, thank y'all so much for being here. I'm super excited to celebrate all things during Hispanic Heritage Month, and I'm excited to try some food.
Yes, you should. Yeah, find more restaurants, but Peruvian for sure. You have to try Peruvian cuisines. That's really good. And Venezuela. Venezuelan has, I lived in Venezuela, so I have a lot of memories tied to that kind of food. But as cuisine, I guess like I obviously more elaborate dishes are Peruvian, but Venezuelan cuisine is also very very good and more casera, like from the homey, I guess. Homey food.
I have to add that to the list.
Yes.
But thanks, y'all.
Thank
Absolutely.
you.